It's the Real News Network. I'm Sharmini Pires coming to you from Baltimore. As the impeachment trial against temporarily removed President Dilma Rousseff moves into the final phase, more information is becoming available that the impeachment is not about corruption, but an effort on the part of corrupt lawmakers to remove a democratically elected president because they themselves are too corrupt and they want to keep that concealed. Last month, an independent commission that was put in place by the Senate admitted that Rousseff committed no illegal acts. However, most of the senators and the interim president themselves are accused of serious involvement in corruption, to the point that the current interim president is barred from running for office by the courts for at least 8 years. How did Brazil get into this situation? Someone who offers a possible explanation has recently published a book titled Brazillionaires: Wealth, Power, Decadence, and Hope in an American Country. It looks at how massive wealth, political power are entangled in Brazil. Now joining us from New York is the author of the book, Alex Cuadros. Alex has written for the Washington Post, the New York Times, Bloomberg, Business Week, Slate, The Nation, and Mother Jones. And after 6 years of living in Sao Paulo, he recently moved back to New York. Alex, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Alex, let's begin with the heart of the problem plaguing Brazil.
Yeah, well, look, Brazil is a country with incredible concentration of wealth. It's one of the most unequal countries in the world. And what I've seen studying the billionaires of Brazil over the past several years is that very few families and very few very rich and powerful people have been at the center of power for a long time in Brazil. Now, I think that the Workers' Party, of which Dilma Rousseff, the suspended president, is a member, kind of pushes a narrative that they are the victim of a conspiracy by elites in Brazil. And I think this narrative is deeply problematic because it ignores the fact that the Workers' Party allied itself with the oldest and the most corrupt elements of the political establishment in Brazil on the one hand, and with the oldest, richest, and oftentimes most corrupt families in business. This is an ostensibly left-wing movement, but it's one that, when it came into power, it encountered a system where the fact is it's hard to get anything done without playing by the rules of the game. And the rules of the game for a long time have been basically siphoning off public money, funneling it to your allies in Congress to guarantee legislative support. And the Workers' Party, when it came into power, despite having announced to the public, to its voters, that it would break with this system, that it was different from the politicians who had come before, it worked with this system. And it took the corruption, maybe not to a new scale, but certainly to new absolute numbers, partly just because of the growth of the Brazilian economy.
Now, part of the reason that happened is because politics, power, the governing class are all very intertwined, entangled. And why is it that Lula and Dilma Rousseff weren't able to break away from that?
Well, that's a good question. And what is unanswered is, were they unable or were they unwilling? It's hard to know, it's hard to test that counterfactual because the fact is that they didn't really try. The Workers' Party for a long time had one of its main planks, the end of campaign donations by companies. But the Workers' Party, first of all, never unilaterally decided to stop accepting them. And second of all, took donations from companies legally and illegally, the same ones that have been at the center of power. So, there's a kind of contradiction here, because if they think that these donations should be banned, it's because they recognize that it's impossible to avoid some kind of influence in policy and in priorities when you're taking money from special interests. But it went on taking this money. I think that it's easy maybe for an American to look at the corruption in a really moralistic way and say that, it was an easy decision. It would have been an easy decision not to play along. I don't think it would have been an easy decision, but I do think that it's right to criticize the Workers' Party for failing really to rock the boat or to make any kind of fundamental change to that system.
Now, from what I understand, Dilma Rousseff finally were making moves to try to address the issue of corruption, and that is exactly why she's in the situation that she is in now. Is there any truth to those motions?
Look, I think that Dilma rightly praises at times, or used to until recently, the Lava Jato investigation car wash, the one that has ensnared so much of the political class in her party and in other parties. She has praised it at times as proof of an institutional advance. Now, this institutional advance is partly the product of decisions that were made during the Workers' Party years. She and Lula, who came before her, did put more money into the federal police. Investigators gained more independence from political interference as compared to past years. But this is, I think to attribute that solely to the Workers' Party leaves out the fact that, this is really the progress of the nation as a whole. Brazil has been a democracy for only 30 years. It was ruled by a military dictatorship from 1964 to 1985. And there were many institutional advances in terms of creating organs of control, government watchdogs during the 90s as well, before they came into office. So, I think it's a bit simplistic to attribute the success of the investigations only to the willingness of the Workers' Party to allow them to happen. And the fact is that, the Workers' Party also apparently tried to work against the investigations in more recent times. Lula was secretly recorded talking about attempting to influence a Supreme Court justice, asking the justice minister to intervene with the finance minister regarding investigations by the tax agency into Lula's finances. So, it's nothing here is black and white. Everything is really shades of gray. And, when you look at the impeachment proceedings, yes, they are bizarre. They're surreal. It is, frankly, really hard for anyone to swallow that more than half of Congress faces either investigations or accusations of one kind of or another, and that these are the people deciding whether Dilma Rousseff will be impeached or not. But at the same time, it's important to realize that this is a systemic problem. The fact is that Congress never really hinged on democratic motives. Up until recently, the same congressmen who are now voting to impeach Dilma Rousseff were her allies, and their support for legislative projects was essentially purchased through bribery.
All right, Alex, let's continue this discussion in a second segment where we will take up further this entanglements with the ruling class of Brazil. I'm speaking with the author of Brazillionaires, Wealth, Power, Decadence, and Hope in an American Country. We'll be back.